Yeah, sure. On the option strategy, it's pretty plain. It's essentially blended in with the spot buying, right? So, with approximately 5% of the proceeds, we selling cash secured puts. It's a limit order essentially. So we'll be a buyer of Bitcoin on dips, and we get paid to do it. There's no value at risk, like we've been asked, and we've made it clear in our disclosures. There's no, like, we're not putting the Bitcoin declared treasury at risk selling options against it, right? We sort of have two pools of capital. We have our HODL. It's a one-way function. Bitcoin goes in, it never comes out. It's not put at risk. We then have our we have our Bitcoin income generation business line, if you will, and so that portfolio, as we're raising capital on an ongoing basis, we sell options. We get paid to basically be a buyer of Bitcoin. If we buy the Bitcoin, if we are forced to buy the Bitcoin, we get our put gets struck. We then sweep that Bitcoin into the HODL, and we can do it again. And so that's been a very good business for us. So we oftentimes, when Bitcoin dips, we issue bonds, we buy Bitcoin on the dip. When Bitcoin rips, we're selling equity, and we can partially redeem some of those bonds. So in the past few months, in the past, I think, 10 weeks, we've sold about $300 million of equity at the market to buy more Bitcoin. And so, we plan to be a buyer up, down, and sideways. We're signaling that we're going to be a buyer at any price, and we've tried our best to emulate that. What else? Did I miss anything there, or anything kind of unclear, or it just maybe you want to follow up? And
Can you give us the 80 IQ explanation of moving strike warrants? Because it's the quasi ATM facility per se for you guys. Can you kind of explain that a little bit on the moving strikes warrants?
yeah, sure. So in Japan, there's no formal ATM facility. In Japan, it's a bit different. The way to sort of sell shares at the market, it's not as simple. So we designed sort of an ATM look-alike or workaround in the form of moving strike warrants. But essentially, how it works is, how we designed it is, we issued warrants to a third party, Evo, and they have basically a one-day look-back call option on MetaPlanet. So we issue these warrants. It's 100% of the previous day's close. So if the stock was 100 yesterday and today it's 105, our counterparty has the ability to buy shares at 100. And so they have share borrow, and they sell in the market. They exercise at yesterday's close. We get $100 or 100 yen. They sell at 105. And so we are raising money at yesterday's price, which is pretty remarkable because most moving strike warrants in Japan are an 8 to 10% discount, right? Because usually the companies that are fundraising in Japan are financing through this facility or through this moving strike warrant. They are companies that, are in a financing crunch. They're not volatile at all. They're, probably paying down debt. For us, we're a hyper volatile stock. We're very, very liquid. And so because our volatility is so high, that one day look back option is very, very valuable. So we have the cheapest equity financing cost in Japan for these moving strike issuers. And we're also the biggest moving strike issuer in Japan by far, I think ever. But it works great for us. And we've raised 300 million of equity in the last couple months with it. But yeah, I think part of that's, we have a Bitcoin balance sheet, but part of it is just that we are sort of, $1.5 billion market cap. So it's obviously, takes a lot less money to move the market as much. We were more volatile when we were, 10 times smaller. But yeah, I mean, I think relative to MSTR, we're actually less levered as a percent of the balance sheet. So theoretically, we should be less volatile, but I think it's just sort of it's probably the volatility premium of being the only Bitcoin proxy in Japan in the market at all, and then also being a small cap, that kind of leads to that really, really high vol. I think we're the most volatile stock in Japan that trades. In terms of stocks that actually have over like $10 million of daily volume, we are the most volatile, which is great because it brings a lot of traders, a lot of speculators, a lot more liquidity, yeah. So I'm not sure the exact vol. I should probably know, but yeah, over 100% realized for sure. Climb the ladder. How's it going? You've appreciate all the commentary the last week.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, just like a super quick summary of my view is I think it's pretty easy. And if people want to, like, just open up Excel and model this stuff out and kind of look at monthly dilution of shares, what the MNAV would be. And then, you can graph out sort of what the Bitcoin per share increase would be by the time they hit 50,000 Bitcoin, 100,000 Bitcoin, whatever. And for me, it's not out of the question that they 10x their Bitcoin per share around the time they hit 100,000 Bitcoin. So it's basically a 10x for me, aside from Bitcoin's price movement. That's how I'm seeing it. And then if Bitcoin 10x's, that's 100x.
Yeah, I don't know if I can comment on that outside of I think it's great to see people kind of doing the math that of the pace that we're building upon. And yeah, I think we're pretty excited. I think we have a good chance to smash our targets.
It's interesting you guys are able to run like an option strategy. Would you guys start selling puts?
So yeah, I mean, the revenue for MetaPlanet right now is predominantly from selling put options on Bitcoin. So we have the cash, we raise money, we're buying Bitcoin almost immediately in most cases. But on again in Q1 we disclosed on April 1st. In Q1 we made $5.5 million of premiums in option premiums, right, delivered in Bitcoin. So yeah, so we're already doing that, and it's fully collateralized. There's no, and again, to reiterate for people that may just join, like we're not putting our Bitcoin at risk. We have two segregated buckets: our Bitcoin HODL, our Bitcoin income generation. We're raising money on an ongoing basis. We're selling put options on Bitcoin, fully cash collateralized. If Bitcoin goes down, we celebrate. We buy the Bitcoin. We got paid to do it. We sweep the Bitcoin into our HODL. And so, the traditional calculus, usually an option seller, like, they don't want to get struck, right? So you sell calls or you sell puts, and you're kind of bummed when you have to exercise, or you have to buy the Bitcoin or you have to buy the stock when it goes down. For us, we actually, we hope Bitcoin doesn't rip right away, and we actually kind of want to get struck, and we want to buy the Bitcoin with our collateral that's already there, and then we sweep it into our Bitcoin treasury, and we can do it again. So for us, it's been a great business. But yeah, so I think that's for us. I think we're sort of monetizing Bitcoin's volatility through that. We're sort of, I guess, selling vol in two separate ways. One, officially, through that Bitcoin option strategy, and then two, the moving strike warrants for us. It's not revenue, but our financing is, in a way, we're selling kind of options on our common, right, through the issuance of these 0% moving strike warrants. So yeah, that's the strategy now. It's nothing exotic. We're not trading in and out of the treasury. It's just the newly raised cash we have. We have the ability to generate an operating profit and operating revenue for the company. Right. So just for some more context, when I joined MetaPlanet last May, and through all of 2024, we had like a what you'd call a note of going concern because the business hadn't earned an operating profit in 7 years, because the real estate market and the commercial, COVID and all of that was very, very tough. So there was basically an auditor's note that, like, hey, here's a big red flag. This company's not making any money. And so stuff like bank financing and debt markets and all this stuff were essentially closed if you're in that box. And so we could buy all the Bitcoin in the world, and we could have hundreds of millions of dollars of unrealized profit on our Bitcoin position, and still have that note of going concern because our operating income, we weren't profitable. Even though Bitcoin, if it went to infinity, we'd still be in that same box. But through our Bitcoin income generation business line, we are getting paid to be a buyer of Bitcoin. We are getting paid to be a buyer of Bitcoin. And so all of a sudden, because purely, In Q4, we started our strategy in October. We publicly disclosed we were doing this. In Q4, we earned double the amount of revenue that the hotel and the rest of the operating business made all year in 2 months through this option strategy. We're getting paid just to buy Bitcoin. And so for us, that's operating revenue, it's operating income, and the auditor's note of going concern was removed after we reported, the fiscal year 2024 revenue numbers. That's not only just a financial, it's not only like a P&L thing. That's why it's valuable. It's valuable to us because it opens up a lot of different options that wouldn't have existed otherwise. Like, if you're a corporate that makes a lot of money and is consistently profitable in Japan, you can borrow from banks at 50 basis points, right? So like that's outside of the traditional sort of like P&L. That's why something like this makes a lot of sense for us. We're getting paid just to buy Bitcoin.